Tropical storm warnings are in effect for the South Texas and North Mexican coast. Good evening, I'm Mike Nasel with this Tuesday night update on the tropics. Look at our system associated with that gyre in areas there of the Yucatan Peninsula and the Gulf of Mexico. A very large area of disturbed weather with dynamic outflow, fantastic outflow, a very favorable look to it, but no discernible center. It is not a tropical storm or a tropical cyclone because it does not have anything in the center. However, there are tropical storm force winds, heavy rain, and it should tighten up into a tropical storm as it moves towards Mexico. Here's the latest as of 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern Time from the National Hurricane Center on the potential tropical cyclone. Where it would be located is around 22.5 north, 93.0 west. Winds still 40, pressure 999 millibars, and it's moving northwest at 7. Yesterday it was north at 7, now it's northwest. It will eventually turn west as that ridge to the north builds in, that mid-level high pressure, and that will move it into northern Mexico sometime late Wednesday into Thursday, and it looks like it should become a tropical storm at any time, but it's having trouble consolidating a low-level circulation. And until there is a low-level center at the surface, it is not a tropical cyclone. So even though we have tropical storm winds, and it looks like one on satellite, we don't have a center yet. Here's a satellite imagery, and I sped it up so you could kind of see there's a little spin in here, maybe if you watch that area I just circled, I guess, but there's just not a well-defined low-level circulation center, and that's why it is not a tropical storm. And by definition, we cannot call it a tropical cyclone. You know, before they started issuing updates on potential storms, this would just be a feature we're watching and waiting. But with the tropical storm force winds, especially on the northern side, you have to issue tropical storm warnings. You got to do it. And that's why we do have a tropical storm warning from San Luis past Texas all the way to the border and then all the way down past areas there, La Pesca, Mexico. That whole stretch of coastline is under a tropical storm warning. And that's why we have advisories issued on a potential tropical storm, because it's within the time frame to where we have to issue warnings, because even if it becomes a tropical storm at the last minute, you got to warn people of what's to come. Look at this wind field, over 400 miles wide to the north of where the system is centered. So even if it comes ashore way down here in northern Mexico, all of this wind field is going to move over areas there of Texas, not even South Texas. I mean, South Texas is here. This is the mid to even upper Texas coast that is going to get in on some of these winds. Rainfall is the biggest threat. We have that flood risk, and this will especially be true through Thursday. By Friday, it'll still be wet, but not as bad. However, areas there along the mid and South Texas coastline and inland are at highest risk for flooding. Laredo, Corpus, Brownsville, Padre Island, Port Aransas, all these areas are in the moderate flood risk. To say nothing of wet weather further north from areas of Junction and Midland all the way into Roswell, New Mexico. You guys are getting into the marginal flood threat as the system will push in. Again, it could be way down here, but it's so sprawling that the tropical storm winds and the rain are going to impact Texas. How much rain? Well, we're looking at 4, 6, 8 inches, but I think it could be more in the 10 to 12 inch range, especially in the higher elevations there, and that does increase the threat of torrential downpours and mudslides. Now here's the radar, and right now we have some good rain coming into areas there of western Louisiana. So Cameron, Louisiana, areas there of New Iberia, you guys, Abbeville, that area there near Intercoastal City and westward, you guys are getting in some of the rainfall, some heavier stuff just offshore, and this fetch of moisture is going to continue, and that's why there's that flood threat. Again, it's a very large, sprawling system, so you don't need a strong system to have heavy rain. You don't even need it to have a name. So whether or not it becomes a tropical storm is irrelevant, but it should become a tropical storm before hitting land. The key messages as of 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern: Number one, users are reminded not to focus on the exact forecast track. It's very large with rainfall, coastal flooding, and wind impacts in Texas and northeast Mexico. As mentioned, even if it came ashore in Tampico, Mexico, you could have tropical storm winds way the heck up here on the upper Texas coast. Secondly, rainfall associated with it will impact Central America, northeast Mexico, South Texas, considerable flash and urban flooding, along with new and renewed river flooding. Life-threatening flooding and mudslides are likely, especially, like I said, in the higher terrain, including areas there in Mexico and the city of Monterrey. If you're in Monterrey, make sure you're watching the local weather updates and keeping tabs. Whether or not this is a tropical storm, the rainfall is going to be torrential. Number three, moderate coastal flooding across much of Texas through midweek. Remember, you're going to have a constant fetch of wind, and so water levels will rise. And number four, tropical storm conditions are expected to begin overnight or on Wednesday along portions of the Texas coast, south of San Luis Pass, along portions of the coast of northeast Mexico within that warning area that I showed you before. Again, this is forecast to become a tropical storm prior to landfall, probably somewhere in the 45 to 50 mile per hour range. If and when it is given a name, it will be named Alberto. And that name has been on this list since the 6 lists were created in 1979. We used Alberto in 82, 88, 94, 2000, 2006, 2012, 2018, and we should use it this time. And hopefully we'll use it again in 6 years, because if it's a bad storm, they take it off the list. Hopefully the flooding is not too bad and it heads inland and weakens. We will watch this region because we could have a second system all coming out of this gyre, spitting out different circulations. So this system could go by, and then we could have another behind it taking a similar track. So it's going to be a very wet time there from Texas south in areas of the western Gulf of Mexico. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on our potential tropical storm, and we do have tropical storm warnings from San Luis Pass down to the border and northern Mexico. Stay tuned for more updates on this system.